Hi, I'm Ben Coles. Welcome to Camping with the Coles. In this video, we're going to have a look at lithium iron phosphate batteries and whether it's worth it to you to switch from the lead acid deep cycle batteries that normally come with a new travel trailer. In this video, we're going to have a look at what the difference is between lead acid and lithium iron phosphate batteries, what is actually required to switch battery types, a cost comparison. I'll show you how I did the switch, and we'll do real-life testing with camping without hookups for 4 nights. But first, we're going to talk about the brand of lithium iron phosphate batteries I chose to go with. I picked the Aolithium 100Ah-4S battery. They retail for about $620 Canadian or $470 American, and there's free shipping. Aolithium gave me 2 of their batteries to do a review on at no cost. Now, several brands of lithium iron phosphate batteries had contacted me to do reviews on them. I did my own research, and I decided on the Aolithium, mostly because of their quality battery management system and the built-in Bluetooth 5.0 and free phone app to monitor your batteries. Also, the price of the batteries was pretty reasonable compared to what you get. Now, I am not an expert in this. I'm just a guy that did some research, figured some things out for himself, and took the batteries through some tests in a real-world RVing experience. I also watched some very technical videos where people took different brands of batteries, took them apart, tested them, and evaluated them. And the Aolithium always came out very well, and the testers were always very impressed with the quality and reliability, especially at the price point. You can put up to 4 Aolithium 100Ah-4S batteries together in a series to get 48 volts with 100 amp hours, or you can put them in parallel to get 12 volts with 400 amp hours. The built-in battery management system has 15 detection and protection functions to protect the battery. It can do 7,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge. It has a lifespan of around 10 years and a warranty of 8 years. And my favorite is that you can monitor it all with a Bluetooth 5.0 app on your phone. What often comes with a new travel trailer when you buy it is one lead acid deep cycle battery, also known as a marine battery. With our travel trailer, it came with an 85 amp hour one. A couple of years ago, we went camping at Bruce Peninsula National Park. Now, none of the sites at Bruce Peninsula has any electricity, and we were going there with our one 85 amp hour lead acid battery. I brought with me a 2,000 watt gas generator to help charge up the battery. Each day, we ran that generator for about 4 hours, and each night, in the middle of the night, our battery would end up being dead. And I thought we were using minimal power when we were camping. Now, here's a big problem with lead acid batteries. You should not discharge them to below 50%. If it goes below 50%, you can start damaging the battery and decreasing its lifespan. And the lifespan for a lead acid battery is about 3 to 5 years. So when our battery went dead, that was definitely below 50% because it had no power at all. Now, at that time, I didn't have a way of measuring how much power is left in the battery other than the little light that is in the trailer that just shows the little dots with how much power is in it, which I don't know how accurate that is, but it did show it as completely dead each night. So I couldn't even go a full 24 hours without completely depleting the battery. So I'm sure I damaged it. However, we didn't do a lot of off-grid camping after that. I went for the next couple of years, almost always being hooked into power. I knew that I wanted to get into more camping without hookups. So I decided to go from one lead acid battery to 2 lead acid batteries. I first looked at a couple of 6 volt, like golf cart batteries, but ended up deciding against that because those batteries are usually actually bigger than a 12 volt battery and heavier. And I would have to buy new battery cases for it. I'd be hooking them up in series, so the 2 6 volts together would be 12 volts. But I decided I was going to stick with what I know. I know the lead acid 12 volts, and I got 2 of those batteries, and both of them were 85 amp hours. Now, if you're going to do something like that, what you need to do is buy the batteries together at the same time, the same brand, everything the same. You don't want to take your existing battery and add a new battery to it. A couple months ago, we camped at Samuel de Champlain Provincial Park, and that park currently has no electric sites. They've been without power at the campsites for about 4 years now, but that's another story. We stayed there for 3 nights. I used a 1200 watt Opus solar generator to charge the batteries. This time I was armed with more tools to monitor the batteries. I had a battery monitor on the batteries to see how they were doing. On the second day there, I used the solar generator to charge the batteries for a couple of hours. The monitor showed that they were full, but I don't think it was accurate. I suspect that once a load was put on them, they would drop quickly. I kept getting the batteries down to 57% and 53%. They were getting very close to the 50% mark, where it could cause damage to the batteries. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep the solar generator topped up because of a lack of good sunlight to power the solar panels. We depleted the solar generator by the time we were scheduled to leave, and the batteries were at 53%. It was fortunate that we were leaving then after 3 nights, because the solar generator was empty and we needed about 6 hours of good full sunlight on the solar panels to charge it back up so that we could charge up the batteries again. Then I started looking into lithium iron phosphate batteries. I could find batteries that are really cheap for around $440, and I can go right up to $1,400 for battle-born batteries, which are considered top of the line. I decided to go with Aolithium at a price point of around $620. Now let's have a look at some differences between lead acid and lithium iron phosphate batteries. With lead acid batteries, you should not deplete them under 50%. So that means if you have a 100 amp hour battery, you should not go below 50 amp hours or it could cause damage. With the lithium iron phosphate battery, it can go down to 0%, so you get the full power from the battery. What that means is, to equal 100 amp hours with a lithium iron phosphate battery, you only need one battery that's 100 amp hours. With a lead acid battery, you'd need 2 100 amp hour batteries to give you 100 usable amp hours. Lead acid batteries have no built-in safety. You can easily cause damage to your batteries by not monitoring them. You can let them go below 50%. You can even let them go to 0% and cause damage to your batteries. With the Aolithium lithium iron phosphate battery, it has a built-in battery management system. It protects from overcharging, overheating, charging the battery when it's below freezing and can cause damage. And basically anything that can cause damage to the battery, it's going to protect it automatically. Lead acid batteries need to be cared for. You need to make sure that you top up the batteries with distilled water to keep the plates covered. With an Aolithium battery, you don't have to do anything to it. The Aolithium batteries have a built-in monitor with Bluetooth, so you can monitor everything about the battery on the phone. With a lead acid battery, you'd have to buy an aftermarket device to do that same thing. My lead acid battery weighs 42 pounds, where the Aolithium battery weighs just under 25 pounds. An Aolithium battery costs around $620. Now, to do a proper cost comparison, we have to look at the usable amp hours between the lithium iron phosphate battery and the lead acid battery. At Canadian Tire, I found a 90 amp hour lead acid battery for $200. I actually had trouble trying to find a comparison battery at 100 amp hours. I could find them that were sealed lead acid batteries or AGM batteries, but those were around $350 each. And for this cost comparison, I wanted to find the cheapest lead acid battery I could find around 100 amps. So I found this 90 amp hour one. So for the cheapest lead acid battery I could find, we've already decided that you need 2 lead acid batteries to equal 1 lithium iron phosphate battery. But there's more to that. A lead acid battery has a life expectancy of 3 to 5 years. The Aolithium lithium iron phosphate battery has a life expectancy of 10 years. So over 10 years of cost comparison, you would need 4 lead acid batteries to equal 1 lithium iron phosphate battery from Aolithium. So that's 1 quality Aolithium battery for $620, or 4 of the cheapest lead acid batteries for $800. Some may lead you to believe it's as simple as that. You swap out your lead acid battery with a lithium iron phosphate battery. Done. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. It depends on what equipment you already have in your trailer. If you have a 2022 or a newer trailer, it is probably that simple. However, I've got a 2017 trailer, and the converter in the trailer can only fully charge lead acid batteries. It can't fully charge a lithium iron phosphate battery. So that's something you need to find out for yourself with your trailer by looking up the model number of your converter to see what it can do. Some converters have a switch on it where you can tell it what kind of battery it's going to be charging, and some are a smart converter that just figures out what kind of battery it can charge. And then there's what I had, which was just a converter that will only charge at the level of a lead acid battery. Also, our lead acid battery was a group 24 size, and the Aolithium battery is a group 27 size. So that means you have to get a different size battery box to fit the Aolithium battery. You may have a battery charger for the off season, like a trickle charger. Well, that won't work for lithium iron phosphate batteries. You'll need another type of battery charger. So there's a few things you need to look into that add to the cost of doing the swap, and add to a little bit of work of doing the swap if you definitely need to change your converter. So I want to give you the real facts here. It's not as simple as some people make it out to be. The converter itself cost me $330. I did the installation myself. It was fairly simple to do. I'm going to be putting out a video of that installation in the very near future. For the battery box, I decided to get a locking battery box to put on the tongue of the trailer. I wanted to do that. Number one, a lithium iron phosphate battery doesn't need to breathe. It doesn't give off noxious gases like a lead acid battery does. So you can have it in a sealed compartment. And they are fairly expensive batteries. I don't want them to get stolen. So this is a locking box that I put the batteries into. So that keeps them nice and safe and protected from the weather. The box cost about $90 and the hardware to do the installation about $30. So that was $120. I'll also be putting out a video of that installation in the very near future. If you're keeping track, that means to switch to one 100 amp hour Aolithium 4S battery, the cost over 10 years is $620 for the battery, $330 for the converter, $120 for the battery box, $70 for the battery charger, for a total of $1,140. With the cheapest 90 amp hour lead acid battery, the cost over 10 years is $800 for 4 batteries, $25 for a battery box, $36 for a battery charger, $24 for battery cables for parallel installation, for a total of $885. One of the big costs to switching over to lithium iron phosphate batteries is the cost for the converter. For us, that was $330. Now you can get away without that and just use your original converter, but it'll only charge the batteries to 80%, around 80%. You're not going to get the full power out of the batteries, but it might be worth it to save the $330. But one thing about lithium iron phosphate batteries is that they need to be charged up to 100% in order to equalize all the cells inside the battery. If the cells don't get equalized, then over time the battery degrades. You might end up getting a dead cell, and then you're going to have less capacity in the battery. And the cells only equalize when you charge them up to 100%, because when it goes up to 100%, it stays charging at 100% until all the cells are equal. If you're only going up to 80%, it stops at 80%, and not all the cells may be at 80%. So that's one thing. Now, to get around that, what you could do is every now and then, you can plug it in to your new lithium iron phosphate battery charger. So when plugged into shore power and your batteries get up to around 80%, you can then plug it in to your battery charger to get them up to 100% and equalize all the cells. So that's one way to get around not paying that cost. So if you do that, the cost over 10 years for the Aolithium battery is $810, and for the lead acid batteries, it's $885. So what I actually did is I went from 2 85 amp hour lead acid batteries to 2 Aolithium 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. So for usable amp hours, I went from 85 usable amp hours to 200 usable amp hours. That should make a big difference when camping off grid. So the next thing to do is see what kind of difference that makes. Let's get out there, go camping off grid. We're on our non-electric campsite. We're going to be here for 3 days. We're going to be testing out these batteries. So I've got the app open. Both batteries, we're starting off at 96%. Yes, they're not fully charged. They're at 96%. And we're going to see how they work. So we'll be checking daily at 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. and see how we're doing. It's 9 a.m. on day number 2. I'm just checking the batteries now. I'm looking, battery number 1 is at 85%. It's currently drawing 5 or 6 watts of power. The residual capacity is 85.40 amp hours. Now let's check out battery number 2. Battery number 2 is at 77%. It is drawing 7 or 8 watts right now. Residual capacity is 77.25 amp hours. So with one at 85, one at 77, there's a 8% difference there. So the middle of that, 81. So the two batteries together are at 81%, and that's after about 22 hours of use. So I think we're going to get a good few days out of this without having to do any recharging at all. But we'll keep on following. We'll check again at 9 o'clock tonight. It is 9 p.m. on day number 2, and we're checking on the battery right now. Battery number 1 is at 75%. It's currently drawing 22 watts because I got all the lights on in here right now. And the residual capacity is at 75.08 amp hours. Now let's have a look at battery number 2. And battery number 2 is at 71%. So it's currently drawing 17 watts or 19 watts of power. I was watching it a little earlier when I didn't have any lights on or anything, and it wasn't actually drawing any current. And battery number 1 was drawing. So they are evening out. So with 75 and 71%, we're at 73%. So we're doing pretty good. We can go a long time like this. Sorry about that. I missed the 9 o'clock time. I'm coming down with a little something. You can probably hear it in my voice. But anyway, it's now 10 o'clock. And battery number 1 is at 66%. Let's check out battery number 2. And battery number 2 is at 67%. And it's using 24 watts right now of power. Residual capacity is 67.12 amp hours. It is day 3, 9 p.m. And battery number 1 is at 53%. Battery number 2 is at 58%. So that means we're basically at about 55 or 56%. We're doing really well. Remember, with a lithium iron phosphate battery, you can go right down to 0. It's not a lead acid that you don't want to go below 50%. It's currently drawing 18 watts. Residual capacity, 58.10 amp hours. So that's it. We'll do the final one tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're at the end of our trip. I brought in the slide out. I brought up the tongue jack. Both those use a fair bit of power. And now it's time to check on the batteries. So battery number 1 is at 45%. Let's have a look at battery number 2. Battery number 2 is at 53%. So together, we're at about 50%. And if you remember, you started at 96. So really, we're like at 54%. So that is basically, well, pretty much exactly 72 hours. And we've used up less than half the battery capacity. So we could easily do 5 or 6 nights like this without ever having to charge the batteries. Now, kind of in the beginning of this test, we were conserving a little bit. We didn't want to put on a lot of the lights, and we were just conserving a little bit. As we saw how well the battery is doing, we started doing a lot more. So we were using the lights a lot more. We had the radio on, the speakers inside and outside. We're pretty much using the trailer like we normally do when we're hooked up to electricity. So this is doing exceptionally well. These Aolithium 100 amp hour batteries are pretty darn good, and they certainly passed my test. And now I know I can go 4, 5, 6 days, no problem, without electricity, just running on these batteries. When I was doing the final edits on this video, I realized I made a mistake. When I was giving you all those prices from Amazon, from Canadian Tire, from Princess Auto, all those prices were before taxes. What I didn't realize, though, is that on the Aolithium site, check this out. The price is taxes included. So, to make things equal, apples to apples, we know it takes 4 lead-acid batteries over 10 years to equal the power of one Aolithium 100 amp hour battery. Well, that $800 is actually $920 compared to the $620 for the Aolithium. And now for some even better news. Aolithium has given us a discount code. So if you're ordering these batteries, there'll be a spot to put in the discount code. The discount code is COLES. You put that in, you get $30 off. So that $620 is now $590, taxes included, plus free shipping. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.